Getting things set up. But yeah, as I said, discussion tonight, man, is there's some different things I want to talk about. But I once again want to thank folks who are on the YouTube live and on my IG live for jumping on with Coach Smith. Briefly, I'm not going to be too long, but I'm coming on here too because I'm with promoting and pumping up National Junior College Prep Football League, right? That I'm a part of as the head coach of the Dallas Stampede, and we're still, looking for kids. And so I just wanted to jump on here and talk a little bit about that tonight, and just share some reality too with some things I know that's going on with some kids with this NFL draft. Things that's happening in that world as well. And so, but yeah, so as far as me coaching, with National Junior College Prep Football League as the Dallas Stampede head coach, this is going to be our third season. And we're going from 3 teams in our league to almost 20 teams. I think either 18 or 19 teams in our league. And so we're excited about that going, man, and jumping off. And there are a lot of kids right now starting to, reality is sinking in that they don't have, they haven't landed anywhere, right? With their opportunities out of the portal, out of the transfer portal, as well as some high school kids who were still hoping and planning on something would break loose for them to get scholarship opportunities. And I just want to come on here to talk about football dreams to reality for these players. And also a little bit about, like I said, about the combine. But I'm coming on here so I can let you guys know that, hey, we're looking for still on the offensive side of the ball, we're looking for about 8 to 10 solid guys who feel like they can still play ball on our O-line, right? We're looking for 8 to 10 O-linemen. We're looking for about 8 to 10 solid D linemen. We're looking for about 6 to 8 linebackers, preferably about 8 linebackers. We're looking for about 8 to 10 DBs. We're looking for about 8 to 10 wide receivers, and maybe like 3 to 4 QBs, preferably 4 QBs. And as I said, in our league, we're giving everybody an opportunity to play, right? That's what we're working towards, to help these guys build their resume, right, of production. Okay. And then you got to get beyond production. I'll talk a little more about that, as I said, about the draft and some things I'll share that I know that's going on with some athletes in this upcoming NFL draft. And so, but those are some things that, like I said, that we're looking for at Dallas Stampede, along with other teams in our league. We're looking to give these young men an opportunity to continue to pursue their dream of college sports and playing effectively at the next level. I'm looking for kids who feel like they're a D2 level kid or higher, right? If you're touting, I see kids promoting, they got D3 offers, and they got to understand, when you put stuff out there like that on social media and you're trying to get the attention of some higher level college coaches, being excited about a D3 offer is not going to get you that opportunity. Because coaches are probably going to feel like, oh, the kid is excited about a D3 offer, and maybe he's not the type of kid that we want in our D2 program or our FCS Division One or our FBS Division One, right? So I try to tell some of these kids about how to be careful about how you market that, that kind of stuff. Granted, you should thank those coaches that gave you the offer, but you got to understand, when it comes to a financial, when it comes to a monetary situation on how you're going to make that happen, with a D3 offer. Division III does not give athletic scholarships, okay? And now the Division II school scholarships are limited, right? So they're not giving out a lot of full scholarships unless they know you can play ball. It's tough to get it at D2 level now, so it's going to be that hard to get it at the Division I level. Some kids may figure, hey, I'll just go walk on, and then you got to look at that price tag on what it's going to cost you, and compare that to our league, that's only going to cost somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 to come play for us. And really, that $5,000 or $6,000 is just helping not pay for all your insurance, because the league is going to cover a lot of the stuff as well. We're going to be assisting financially and paying for, fields, doing a lot of marketing and promoting of our games, of our athletes, and helping them with their social media presence, but giving them some solid and quality video footage to put out there to show that they can play college level ball, especially from D2 and up. But you got to understand, most of those NAIA programs and Division III programs can be very expensive, because most of them are private schools, and they aren't cheap. They aren't cheap at all. They aren't inexpensive at all. And so you'll be putting out and potentially risking your eligibility going somewhere like that when you really don't know if you're going to get an opportunity to get on that field. And so going through our league is kind of like, almost like high school again, but playing at a higher level with guys who played some college ball as well in our league, that are signing up, as well as some real, some high school kids who may have gotten missed, for whatever reason. They've gotten missed. They didn't go to some camps. I know I've talked to plenty of high school kids that didn't go to camps, and there's no way you can expect to get recruited seriously by any college coach, and you did not go to a football camp. It's not going to happen unless you just ate it up on the field and you just that guy, But there's a lot of you guys that are just in the mix, right? There's only a few guys. I've shared this before on the podcast. There's some guys who are good, really good. Some guys who are great, right? And guys who are like just star level talent, right? So if you didn't go in camps while you were in high school, and you weren't really that guy that stood out on your video as one of the top players in your area, right? You just caught up in the middle where, hey, yeah, if I got an opportunity, potentially, if somebody would have seen me, maybe I would have gotten, an offer, at least at the Division II level. And so, if you decide that you're going to go walk on somewhere other than coming like to our program, you're risking the eligibility. Coming to play with NJCP, we're going to give you a solid start in your recruiting. We're not expensive, and you're not going to lose a year of eligibility coming in our league and playing, right? We got housing set up, and we have job opportunities set up. And so you have to look at that, and I've given an example of, like I say, my nephew who was a preferred walk-on at Oklahoma last year, where he earned himself, a sizable academic scholarship that really kind of helped cut into a state school, which is, University of Oklahoma State University, right? Some state universities can cost, but, I don't think, from what I understood, let me see I'll look it up while I'm on here, while I'm on my computer, out of state tuition for University of Oklahoma. Let's see what that is. Because my nephew got like a $15,000 yearly academic scholarship. So in-state tuition is just under $10,000 at Oklahoma, $9,500. Out-of-state tuition is $26,000. Probably I was going to say like 28, but it was 26.5. So it says the total cost is the sticker price plus the cost of food, housing, books, and supplies, and transportation and personal expenses. This is what they call cost of attendance that every school has to come up with. And at the University of Oklahoma, the total cost is for out of state is $31,306 for in-state students, and $48,886 for out of state students, right? And so now, just know this. When coaches are recruiting you for football and they really want you, whether you're a scholarship kid or a preferred walk-on like my nephew, they can ask admissions or the university to only charge a player that they really want in-state tuition if they want. That'd be totally up to the university. They'll ask, or there's ways to get that cost down. But as I said, my nephew, his parents have the money to be able to pay for it. And because he was hard work in the classroom like he was on the field, he was able to get 15,000 a year. So he's already knocked off like 15,000. But they asked him to come, right? That's the other thing you understand. OU came after him and said, "Hey, we want you to be a preferred walk-on," right? And then on helping him as far as his eligibility, they redshirted him, which is good. So he still has 4 years to play. And so he's going to have this upcoming year really to get himself, he worked hard during the season, putting out, did well on the scout team and all those types of things, stood out. I know he's gotten their attention. And so, he may get himself on the field a little bit this year, even if it's special teams. Doesn't matter. You're getting on the field, getting experience. And then maybe when they play against some weaker teams with a big lead, he'll get in and get some game experience. That's how it works. But that's the scenario where he went to camps. He did some things that I told him to do. That you got to get to some football camps. And he went to a lot of football camps. Name got out there, had some FCS offers on the table, right? So he had some opportunity. He had some scholarship opportunities, Division I FCS, but took the chance to go to FBS. If you're not rolling out opportunities like that right now, which if you're still waiting on something, you're going to continue to be waiting. And I'm trying to help, bring some reality in to where maybe you can get that opportunity still, and come in and working with a program like National Junior College Prep Football to help solidify your legitimate ability of playing at Division II or higher, coming through our system and through the connections and relationships that we have as coaches throughout our league across the country with National Junior College Prep Football. And so, as I've said, I've shared, I went through it. I went to one camp when I grew up, and that one camp did it for me because I went to University of Miami and stood out and got offered. And that turned a lot of the eyes towards me. Okay. But I didn't have the support of a good high school coach. But I know that one camp that I went to where I excelled and showed what I was about in front of Jimmy Johnson and Dave Wanstead, who recruited our area. And what I mean by that is when I went to that camp, they, just like the NFL Combine, they test you out in the 40, 20-yard back pedal, short shuttle. I think, we did pull-ups. I think we did the bench. We did like push-ups, just different drills. I was always like one of the top, or if not the top, athlete at the camp that I went to. So I realized, and I knew I would eat that stuff up because I ate that stuff up, right? I enjoyed training and doing those things and ate up the opportunity that not just my production, I knew I had production video also from high school games, playing against other top tier talent and other top guys who were being recruited in my area on the defense and offensive side of the ball. There were some guys on the defensive side of the ball from high schools that I played against that I put up some yards against them and some touchdowns. So that was significant. Here's a solid Division I DN or linebacker that we're playing against in high school. And I'm eating the defense up, right? And so I had that production on film. But when you get in front of those guys at a camp and they put you through those different tests, you better stand out if you're trying to make that dream a reality, right? I don't care what sport it is. When they take you through whatever tests and drills that they're going to take you through, strength drills, agility drills, you had better already practice that stuff and can do it in your sleep before you get in front of those folks and have to show where you stand, right? Where how well you do that. And so when I had that opportunity to do that in front of Jimmy Johnson, University of Miami, running the fastest 40 time, having the fastest 20-yard back pedal, doing the most dips, push-ups, and all those different things. Just the different drills that they took us through, trying to size us up, and also competing against other top recruits that were there at the same time that they had their eyes on, and comparing us, at different positions. Not comparing us necessarily as people, but comparing us at our position to see when we do these drills, do you pass those drills for them to give me an offer to get an opportunity, Are you one of the better recruits that we've seen come through our camp, right? And you better have stood out or can match things like that. And so for some of you kids who went to those camps and you didn't stand out like that, then that's why you don't have an offer on the table from anywhere. Or if there was you did pretty decent, you did pretty good to get their attention, but then there was somebody else who may have come along and got their attention, or they felt like, oh, we rather take more of a chance on this kid than you, because maybe you didn't stand out enough. And it can't just be game film, right? They don't do the NFL combine for no reason. Coaches, these college coaches, do not have these camps for no reason. They're looking for kids to compete with each other. They're looking for kids to see how well they stand out, going through these certain drills that they've done for years and they're not going to change. And if you don't learn as an athlete in your sport, right, and in your position to be able to show that you got some good strength, and that's because, and if you're not doing that, it means you're not spending time in the weight room to show that when you get in front of folks. And so that tells them that you could potentially be lazy because you're not, oh yeah, you look good on film, but are you going to maintain that when you get to this level called college football, and even guys at the pro level, are you going to do what you need to do to maintain playing at a level and improving each week and every year to bring those W's in, those wins, right? And so if you're not committed to that, and they'll know that you're not committed because they'll be able to look you up and size you up when you come to camps and put their eyes on you and see, touching your arm, seeing if, hey, hey, this kid, does he seem like he's been lifting, right? Does he look like he's in the weight room, right? Those types of things. And then when we put them through some certain tests and drills and lifting, it's going to tell the story. It's going to tell that, because you might have some heck of a film, right? That's going to, they're going to like you and you're going to get their attention, but then are you going to keep their attention when it's time to test you out in some of those drills? And if you haven't practiced those things, right? If you haven't, appreciate you guys jumping on with Coach Smith, 27. I love the game, 24/7 on YouTube, IG. I appreciate it. But like I was saying, if you're not, these coaches, when you go to these college camps, or if you went to these college camps, if you didn't stand out, it just like I was just saying, it can't. If your game film could stand out pretty good, or it can be somewhere in the middle, where hey, we kind of like like this young man, right? And your film is kind of like, okay, he look like he might be able to play at this level. But when you go to these camps, man, these college camps, and if you went to some, now, as I said before, if you didn't go to any, you should not be expected to get any kind of offer from any school but a Division III school or NAIA school. Okay, because NAIA and Division III, they're just trying to get kids who just happen to be saying they play college football. They'll every now and then get some, NAIA, they'll get some ball players. Some Division III schools will get some ball players, but they're looking just to get the leftovers that the D2 and upper level schools weren't interested in. And as I said, coming to NJCP in our league, you're not going to lose any eligibility. You're going to get your development. We're going to talk to you like I'm talking to you right now on this YouTube channel, being real about how to make your football dreams a reality, or whatever the sport it is, college sport that you're trying to play, that dream a reality. Okay. And I'll give a quick example, even with a young man, a friend of mine who I know that's an NFL agent, where a kid, production wasn't that great, but when the young man had his pro day, he did some pretty good things for his size as a lineman that got their attention, but it didn't get their attention necessarily in a good way. It got it in a negative way because they were like, wait a minute, his production is not fitting how well he did when he tested out. because he tested out well, but for some reason his game footage isn't matching up with how well he tested out. And so that causes the team to look at you as you're probably lazy, or maybe you were going through something. And if you were going through something, that's understandable, but still it's not helpful for your opportunity. Because now they got to decide, okay, if the young man was going through something, is that something we want to deal with? Or is it something that we think, hey, we're willing to take a risk because of what his drill numbers look like, right? The 40 and the shuttle and the vert and the L drill, those things are like, man, they're pretty good. And so that can hurt you as well. Like, okay, well, why didn't this young man who did so well in these drills in football, it didn't translate on game film when we looked at game film? And then when we talked to some of the coaches, because they're going to talk to coaches just like the recruiters recruiting high school kids, right? They're going to talk to coaches, and if they're recruiting you out of the transfer portal, even though the coach is letting you go from the school that you're leaving, you be rest assured the coaches, they talk to each other, right? Even though somebody's, you're leaving one program and you're transferring to another one. But that's what I'm saying, and vice versa. You could not have the drill numbers that they're looking for, and your film could be great, and they're gonna be like, well, wait a minute, like, man, he looks good, right? Because here's the thing: there's some of these NFL guys coming up for this draft are coming into the realization about, like I said, I just want to be real, all the time when I gotta go live, and parents are listening, and some of you players may be listening, whether you're listening to this live, or you go back and listen to the recording. Forgot to mention, guys, if you think, you like Coach's conversations that come on, be sure you subscribe to Coach. Follow me. I appreciate it. I'm trying to grow this channel because I'm trying to help you young athletes and parents understand how this recruiting process works. But one thing that, that I appreciate were the older guys who would tell us the things that we need to do. And I was always listening. I mean, I love football, man, that much that, anything, some of the guys I knew that were ball players from my high school that I knew were like straight dogs, older guys that I just, loved to watch playing when I was in middle school and early high school, that they were like giants to me. And when those guys would say, hey, to my teammates and guys my age, when they would be out there at the high school coming home during the summer break or Christmas, and you get a chance to talk to them and ask questions, and they just would straight up and say, man, if you don't, you got a ball out, but another thing you do, if you don't show these people in these drills, that you can, play this game, then you're gonna be shooting yourself in the foot. And I just share another example that one of my buddy, like I said, one of my friends is an agent, where a young man from, coming out this year, DB, and he was came with these demands about, hey, I want to go, I want to train here. I got some friends who are training here, blah blah blah, getting ready for the draft, this and that. And I need this, I need, stipend, kids asking for the world. And some of these kids got to understand, man, until you show that you have the right to earn, that you've earned that stuff, nobody's going to give those things to you. And too many of you young men, you hear about what your friend is getting, and you think you deserve the same thing. And maybe your friend who has all that has done what he needed to do on and off the field, and put themselves in a great position. And you may not have, but I hear these stories from some of my buddies who I know that are agents, and my buddy shared how the kid, came to him saying, oh yeah, I want to be, sitting here, blah, blah, to get my training and this and that. And so one of my buddies, like I said, just said, hey man, if you're looking for me as an agent to put out money for all that, we're not looking to do that. And he was just being real with him, just like, we're not interested, and said, hey, maybe you need to find, and just was honest with him and said, hey, you might need to, talk to somebody else, another agent. Because this young man, like I say, some of these kids can reach out to agents. And usually if you find yourself having to reach out to an agent and the agent hasn't reached out to you, doesn't mean you ain't a ball player. Um, it just means you probably not on anybody's radar, right? And it doesn't mean you might not get a chance. Because I know personally, I wasn't on anybody's radar. Well, let me say, we had our pro day when I was coming out, and I did have some interest. Bledsoe, some of you guys who know NFL and have done pro days and played college ball, football, Bledsoe, I think it stood for like Buffalo Lions. I forget, something in Dallas and Seattle, whatever. They just represented a certain teams, and they used the acronym Bledsoe for the team that they represent, and they're still around. Been around for years, gathering data on college athletes who may be NFL potential players. And I remember I got letters from like the Dallas Cowboys, the Bucks from back home, and several other teams. When I was coming out of college, and so as my buddy shared, he said the young man was had some demands on from his agent, because my buddy asked him, what are you looking for from me as an agent, representing you, to get you prepared. And so he just said, hey, well, we're not looking to put that kind of money out on your status as an athlete right now, trying to get ready for the draft. And he said it in a nice way, but pretty much he was saying, there's no draft grade on you right now. Doesn't mean it couldn't change. Once pro days happen, it could, because he was at a pretty decent university playing ball, and so and NFL scouts are going to be there, and so things can definitely change. Just because you didn't get an invite to the combine don't mean when your pro day come up. Because my oldest son, Jeff, Jeff Jr., he didn't get an invite, which he should have, because his numbers put him in the top 4 or 5 wide receivers when you compared his numbers at his pro day to the NFL combine receivers when he came out. He would have been in the top 4 or 5 receivers, right, in his drills. And that's what I've always honed into him, not just production, making yourself look like a man amongst boys, but also when you do these drills, you better knock it out of the box so they'll know that you're legit. And so this young man, as I said, shared with my buddy about some of his demands. He just told him, hey, we're not doing it, and maybe you need to go ahead and seek some other representation instead of us. And so he did, of course. But like you guys may not know, the pro days just ended like a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago. They just ended. They usually go the whole month of March into the first part of April. And so, and as my buddy was sharing the story with me, he said, this is why I do my research on guys before I decide whether I'm going to represent a young man. I look up where the NFL has him ranked, or if there's anything said about him, or anything of that nature. I look at his size, weight, position, and all those different things. And so as he was telling me, he said, now I'm telling you this because now the results are out from his pro day. And he was like, here this young man was asking me about putting out thousands of dollars and all these different types of things he wanted. And when you looked at his results, they were terrible. And so I want to know if an agent did go and put out thousands of dollars for this young man, and his production at his pro day was awful, where he pretty much not, unless he gets another opportunity to work out for someone and all his numbers just change all of a sudden, he is not going to get an opportunity at all with any NFL team. When you look at his pro day results as a DB at his size and weight, the wind should have blew him and made him run faster than what he did. Right. And so that's what I'm saying, where, time out, because I tell my buddy, man, sometimes you need to just be honest, be straight up with these kids, man, and just let them know. Like, shoot, I told him, hey, if you need me to, if you need me to test out some of your kids, or if you need me to train your kids, right? But the young man's numbers at his pro day were awful, and he wanted, one of my buddies who's an agent to put out thousands of dollars to send him to a training facility where he knew some of his other friends. When you come ask an agent like that, you better know. You better have already known what you can do in a 40-yard dash, in a short shuttle, in an L drill, in a broad jump, in a vert. This young man, all his numbers were terrible. Nobody's going to give him a shot when you look at his numbers, because these scouts, this is their livelihood and their jobs are on the line. And they cannot bring anybody to a GM or offensive coordinator or D coordinator with awful numbers and thinking they're going to maintain and keep their job as an NFL scout. So if you as a player, let me just tell y'all something right now, who may be listening to this live or in the recording, and I hope you, at some point, somebody shares this with you, and you subscribe and follow, and you get in contact with Coach Smith. Because I know right now I can coach up, because some of these kids are running some bad times because they were not trained and coached right. I know the cheat code on what you need to do to run the 40 in your short shuttle, in the vert, in the broad jump. I say cheat code, it really ain't a cheat code, but I just know what you need to do in order to get the attention and run. They have parameters at every drill that you need to run in a 40-yard dash as a wide receiver, as a DB, as an O lineman, as a D lineman, as a linebacker, right? Not so much as a quarterback if you're athletic and can play. Right, you can get by with some of that stuff as a quarterback, but you better have an arm. You better be cerebral, something. But for all those other positions, O line, D line, linebacker, DBs, safeties, wide receivers, for every position, they have a range on what they expect you to run in your 40-yard dash, in your short shuttle, what your 10-yard split better look like, right, before they give you an opportunity to get any kind of invite. And as I said, that's why I told my son from when he was a young man, because I had gone through it. All right, I had Mark Dominic when he was a scout before he became the GM for the Buccaneers. I used to tear his door down. And this was after I had been with the Oilers in training camp. And in order to get my opportunity with the Oilers, Houston Oilers, back in the early 90s, I knew I was going to get. All I was just chomping at the bit to get my opportunity to run my 40, and run my short shuttle, do my vert and my broad jump, because I knew I would get their attention, and I did. And that's why I was able to sign as a free agent. And that's why I'm telling some of you high school kids, you better get to some camps, right? But before you get to those camps, you better have somebody that's going to legitimately train you to teach you about how to perfect these drills. And you're going to have to take some time, because you should be able to do this stuff in your sleep. But some of you kids I watch and see, you take too many false steps. Your start, I can tell a kid at his start, watching his start in his 40-yard dash, unless he just like one of them high school kids just can run, right? Running some 100-meter times that are just, crazy. But even still, this ain't track. And a lot of these coaches didn't coach track. A lot of these scouts, they haven't coached track, or these college coaches. Some of them may have, a lot of them may not have. But they're using that hand watch. And you got to know how to beat that hand watch. And some of you guys don't know how to beat that hand watch for that scout, for that watch to show your speed within the parameters that they expect you to run in. As a high school kid trying to come to college, and as a college kid trying to go to the NFL on your pro day numbers. And like I said, this young man came to my buddy who's an agent, and when my buddy showed me his numbers, he's like, Jeff, ain't nobody's gonna get this young man no opportunity with his numbers looking like that as a DB. He might as well hang it up unless he gets an opportunity to show something better. But he's already shot himself in the foot with his numbers, and that's why my buddy said he didn't take any chance on him. Right? Even if he had some legitimate and decent film, which he played Division I football, And sometimes I'm wondering how some of these kids, got to where they got to. And then, but hey, when it's time to play football, there's a lot of guys that they can play ball, you know. But when you're trying to get to the next level, especially the highest level in the NFL, man, they're not going to mess around with you if you're not running within those parameters that they expect you to run in at every position in your 40 and your short shuttle, right? Your 10-yard split and all those things. And that's why I said for some of you high school kids or kids that are caught up in the transfer portal, and you don't have that production, right? And I shared like the young man that didn't have production, but his numbers at his pro day look great. And so that's caused some of these scouts to wonder, are you lazy? Because your numbers look good, your testing numbers look good, but it ain't matching up with the gameplay, right? I'd rather my gameplay, man, be great and my numbers may not be totally there, but close, right? But I don't want anything in jeopardy. And some of you guys don't spend enough time learning how to run that 40, or you don't have somebody that's teaching you right on how to run that 40. They're just like having you lift, and there's a certain way you need to lift, there's a certain way you need to train, and certain things you need to do on a daily basis. And if you don't have somebody in your corner, then you need to invest in somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about. And that young man that my buddy turned down that came back with garbage numbers, he needs to go get his money back, right? Or I don't know what happened, but you cannot be a DB in the NFL if you don't run at least a 4.6 flat or faster. Period. You cannot be a wide receiver in the NFL if you're not running at least a 4.5, mid 4.5 or faster. Period. Running back, that it depends on your size, right? They may not be expecting you. You better not run no 5. You better run something. You better run something like a 4, mid 4.6, low 4.6 or faster. And then, like I said, it's going to depend on your size and your video production, right? I mean, your game production from what your videos show. So it just depends on at the running back position and also the quarterback position. And so you kids, man, if you want this football dream to be a reality, you got to, you gotta get to some camps at an early, young age. Parents like middle school, start getting your young person experience, whatever sport it is. Get them in camps, by 7th or 8th grade, seeing what the competition is out there with other kids, talent levels who are pursuing or going to be pursuing scholarships at their grade level. Their recruiting class. And like I said, this is what we're working on doing with National Junior College Prep Football League. So if you're in the Dallas DFW area right now, you need to get in contact with Coach Smith, right? Chat if you got any questions. I'm here. I'm going to put my contact. Love the 247game at gmail.com. Love the 247game at gmail.com. You guys need to get on it. Because I see too many times some young men just don't know what they don't know. And they go to these combines or they have their pro days and they do terrible because they got bad coaching, bad training. And, it's irritating because I know I can get a young man's 40 time down, not necessarily, help him show how to get faster, but really just show him what his start needs to be, where his start needs to, how his start needs to go, right? And if he doesn't have the start that he needs to have, I'm already going to tell him. Like I can tell some guys, he probably about a 4.6, 4.7. I can look at a lot of that stuff and realize that hey, you wasted your time saying that you went to this place to train, and your pro day numbers come back terrible. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who that young man, what agent that may have decided to sign the kid and represent him and pay for him to go train. And I would be 38 hot as a agent if I paid for a young man training and his pro day numbers come back looking like garbage. I would be 38 hot as an agent. And I probably would never use that trainer again. And some of you kids got to stop thinking just cause you got a homeboy going somewhere. Is your homeboy on the radar? Your homeboy might be on the radar with the NFL because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're training like they need to train, or their numbers are looking like they need to look, right? And they play it at a high level, every down, right? And hopefully they did get some training, proper training on what they need to do, and maybe they, are doing everything they need to do, and their numbers came back where it needs to be. If you're a linebacker, you better be in that, low 4.7. It depends. You better, you do yourself good if you're a linebacker and you're in the mid. I would say mid 4.6 or faster for a linebacker. Mid 4.6 range. You might get away with a 4.7 because you're playing. You're up at the line. But still, I would always tell my guys. I would work my guys to be at a mid 4.6 or better, right, for most positions. But definitely that wide receiver or DB position, you better be at a 4.5, mid 4.5 or better. If you end up running slower than a 4.65, you're in that 4.7, mid 4.7 to 4.8 range, you're not going to get a call. Nobody's going to draft you because you're not in the NFL has been following these rules and these guidelines as they scout players forever, and it has not changed. It is not going to change no matter what your film looked like. Your film could be great, but if you test it out, god awful, it ain't happening. Somebody might just give you a chance because your film did look great, and they may just say something ain't matching up. It was a kid nervous or what was going on when he ran his 40 because he doesn't look like he's, that he runs that slow when you look at their game film. And the team that might really like you because you had just great film production might say, hey, man, we want to give you another shot. When you're going through something, was something happening? Because you look way too good on film, for your numbers not to, they're kind of close, but not where we think we need them to be to justify, drafting you if we draft you, or even giving you a preferred free agent, tag, right, or ranking or rating. And so, my son's rating went off, shot up after his pro day running in the 4.3s. I think some teams even had him at like 4.29, but I think they overall gave him either 4.31 or 4.33. You run stuff like that, man, everybody and their mama gonna give you a chance, no matter what your production. He could have had more production, and should have had more production. Bad decisions by some college coaches on how they used them, but he had enough production. But he did have a coach in his corner. I give him that. He definitely had his coaches in his corner, and I appreciate that. But he did what he needed to do. Size, weight, speed, agility. He ate that stuff up just like I would have. And I taught him everything hey, this is the kind of work you need. These people put you through this work. This is what your 40 better look like. They run you at that 40, and when you do that, you're gonna give yourself hands down an opportunity for several teams. And he was having a draft after the draft with so many teams calling him when he didn't get drafted, trying to get him to come, be a preferred undrafted free agent with their team. And that's a blessing still in itself. And like I said, for you high school kids that are still looking, and you transfer portal kids, and nobody's knocking down your door, and you still haven't found a home, then you need to come. Like I said, any of you young men in the DFW area, we're looking for 10 to 12 O linemen, about 8 or 10 D linemen, about 8 or 10 linebackers, about 10 to 12 DBs, 10 to 12 wide receivers, about 4 QBs, probably about 6. Probably about 6 running backs. Yeah, probably about 6 running backs. I don't think we need more than that. Probably about, I would say 5 tight ends, 4 or 5 tight ends. That's what we're looking to bring on board. We're looking to get at least 50 to 65 kids, man, on our roster on every team, and really, bring it, and help you young men develop, help you young men get solid opportunities and not lose um, uh, a year of eligibility by trying to go walk on somewhere and you don't get the opportunity. Now, if you get a legitimate opportunity to go walk on, I tell you to go do it. If it's a legitimate opportunity, but you got to look at the price tag, and then you got to look at it and consider, I mean, am I going to lose depending on how many years of eligibility you have left? If they don't redshirt you, you got to look at all that stuff, but definitely the price tag. We're only at NJCP $5,000 or $6,000. You have my email in the chat. Reach out to me. Let's talk. Right? Let's work you out. Let's do that, because I hate for you young people to get in a position where, like some of these guys is trying to go to the NFL and they're hoping, right, on thin ice. I mean, it's thin ice. They're hoping on thin ice, and I hate for you to be hoping for something that's not going to happen. Just being real. And so this is real talk for helping you make your dream of football become a reality. And like I said, some of these guys, man, some of the stories my buddies have told me who are agents, with some of these kids who, tell you, oh no, he's gonna run this, he's gonna run that, and then when the real numbers come out, and like I said, whatever those scouts have you on, man, it's stuck. It's gonna stick unless you get an opportunity to change it, right? And like I said, the time I got to work out for Mark Dominic when he was a scout before he was an agent, after my time as an undrafted free agent with the Oilers, I mean, I would tear down his door. When I say tear down his door, I'll just, at least once or twice a week, man, you got to be persistent, about and passionate about following your dream. But just as much as I was persistent in going to get Mark Dominic to work me out with the Bucks back home, and even getting the Oilers, I was just that persistent in my training, right? Mark Dominic saw the 1 year he worked me out to the next year he worked me out. He could tell me it was different. He's like, you always look like you worked out. But he said, man, from that first year I worked you out to that second year, how good you look. He's like, man, it was a huge difference. And I had more weight on me. And I think I ran, I put a little more weight on because I was an all-purpose running back. When I was with the Oilers, I was a wide receiver. But I was an all-purpose running back growing up. And even in college, I was an all-purpose running back. I mean, there are games I'll rush for 100 yards or close to 100 yards and get 100 yards receiving or close to 100 yards receiving, right? I was putting in games like that as an all-purpose guy, punt returning, kick returning, turning games around with punt returns and, scoring 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game, giving my college team a chance. And we played in the top division in Division II football, North Central Conference, right? And so just as much as I was persistent with knocking down Mark Dominic, as I said, when he was a scout, knocking down his door, I was just that persistent in my training and making sure that I was going to run times, right? My 40 time was going to be in that range to get their attention. My short shuttle was going to be in that range, right, to get the NFL's attention, right? And some of these guys, that try to get, my buddy to represent them, and when their pro day numbers come back, man, he's like, I'm glad I didn't, jump out there trying to represent this kid, and his numbers are just like garbage, and they're thinking they're going to get a shot. But a lot of that has to do with not that they don't know how to run and can't run. Some of them weren't trained on how to run the 40 for those scouts in the NFL or for the college recruiters when you're in high school and you're trying to get their attention and you go to a camp. You need to get the right training on how to run these 40s, right, and how to run these short shuttles and these drills to get these college coaches and these pro scouts to really give you a serious look, right? And that's why I told my buddy, I said, look, if you want me to train some guys, some guys, I ain't gonna charge you thousands of dollars. Hey, I'm gonna charge you a couple of thousand, but you're gonna be rest assured when I get done with them on, and I said cheat code, but I just know what you need to do. I know how to train a guy on his steps and what he needs to do and his endurance and strength to run the time that he needs to run, right? Now, I'm not going to give all my answers out. You want the answer, you come hire Coach Smith to show you and help you out, whether you're a high school kid or a college kid and you're trying to get the attention of college scouts. But like I said, I'm the head coach of the Dallas Stampede, and if you're serious about or persistent about and you have what it takes to play college ball, well, come play with us, and so you don't lose a year eligibility and get developed, get built up in your strength and endurance, right, on and off the field, right? And then when it's time for you to work out for somebody, we're gonna, especially when you come to me, I'm gonna show you how to run that 40 the right way, right? How to get that time, right? And I'm gonna train you, and then you're gonna repeat it and repeat it. Once I show you how to train, it's gonna be repetition, repetition, and you're gonna do it in your sleep. And you'll run the numbers that you need to run at your position to get the attention of college scouts when you come play with Dallas Stampede and Coach Smith, right? And the other talented coaches that I have on board that we've all played college, right? And several of us played pro ball. I had the opportunity to play pro ball, right? That's what you need, okay? If you're not getting that, then you're wasting your time, your money and your energy, right? And you need people who are going to train you and teach you proper technique to run those drills to stand out, right, or to match up with your on-field production, your play on the field. And the way I train you is going to help you with your production, but you got to be persistent to want to make it happen, to make that dream a reality. And so this is why I just came on here tonight, man, just to let you know, hey, Coach Smith, Dallas Stampede, we're looking for some of you young men out here in the DFW area or wherever you may be, right? You can be you don't have to be from Texas. I don't care where. I went home about a month ago to Florida to look at some kids, and I got to reach out to them and see, look here, if nobody's tearing down your door, you better go play where you can go play. If you still feel like you have the ability and you have what it takes to play college ball and you still have some eligibility, right? Nobody's going to knock down your door. I'm not going to tear down anybody's door. Like I said, I'm looking for kids who feel like and can show me on film that they have the ability to play Division II ball or higher. Those are the players that I'm looking for. If you're happy about a D3, we'll walk on and transfer to that D3 school where you're going to have to pay, right? They'll give you some grant money, but you're going to have to pay $20,000, $30,000 or more at that private school because most of those D3 schools are private schools. There are some state schools, Division III schools, but most of them are like private, they're affiliated with a church or something like that, or, from that standpoint. And some of them are, they're just private or whatever the case may be. They've been around, some of the Ivy League programs, they're Division I, right? But if you're, like I said, if you're happy about a D3 offer, hey, more power to you, right? Go play D3 ball, right? But I'm looking for kids who are hungry, who are persistent, and who has what it takes to play Division II ball, top level Division II football and higher, right? And you just need somebody to help, get you to film. You need to come somewhere and play, right? Because you're stuck in the transfer portal, or you're a high school kid that didn't go to camps and you didn't get any offers, and you're trying to, help your exposure to these college coaches and show that you can play at that level. But in order to do that, you need to come play. You need to go play somewhere. And if you go walk on somewhere, your chances of playing are slim to none. Walking on somewhere, they are always going to give first opportunity to scholarship kids, right? Or those kids who walked on before you the year before, right? Unless you just stand out, and that's a possibility, and that's going to depend on how you train. But unless you just stand out, right, walking on somewhere, your chances of getting on the film are slim to none. You'd rather come to us so you can get re-recruited, right? Re-recruited, so they give you a scholarship based off your NJCP game footage, and when they work you out, that's what you rather do. Like you're coming out of high school again, getting recruited. That's what NJCP is going to be like. Like, hey, it's like me coming out of high school and I'm getting re-recruited that I missed coming out of high school because I didn't have a high school coach that told me right. Okay. Or maybe I did have a decent high school coach, but I didn't do what I needed to do. Maybe I'm a late bloomer, or whatever the case may be. Right. Or now I realize, hey man, I really like this game and I want to play it at the next level, in the college level. And I need to get more serious about it, about my development and my training and my play. Right. Or whatever the case may be with some of you guys who are are in the portal and, things just didn't work out, like you thought it would at that school that you initially chose to go to on scholarship. And now you're out of scholarship because you went in the portal. We want to help you guys get yourselves re-recruited, do what you need to do, okay? So that way you didn't lose any years eligibility. It only cost you between $5,000 or $6,000 because you don't have to take classes. You can just come play ball and work, right? And we have housing and all that great stuff. And you can just focus on playing so you can get that scholarship. But if you're going to get that scholarship, you better make sure if you're a high school kid coming to play for us, you're fine as long as your GPA and your test scores were fine coming out of high school. But if you're a college kid coming from coming from college and you're transferring to us, you better make sure you have enough credits that if you did get some interest after playing in our league with us and you stood out and somebody wants to offer you, you'll be able to sign that scholarship with no problem because you have the transfer credits that you need. You have the 2.0 or better GPA that you'll need, and you'll be able to sign that scholarship and be at that school in the spring and get ready for spring football season, right? That's what you want, and that's what we want for you, right? We want you to come play for us. Let us help you get bigger, stronger, and faster, have some good video footage, help re-recruit you to coaches, right? Get invited to some games, right? Making sure that game footage is where it needs to be. And if they do ask to test you out at a certain time, we'll have you prepared and ready to knock it out of the box, right? So you can sign that scholarship and be on campus at that school for spring football season and getting acclimated to your new team after the NJCP took you where you needed to be. That's what we want to do for you. So I appreciate you guys joining Coach Smith, man, on Instagram. On Coach Smith 27 on IG and Love the Game 24/7 on YouTube. So I look forward to you guys, man, joining me next time. But be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, right? Follow, like, share, right? Share this with your family members that that have somebody that's trying to find their way back, right? Or trying to get stuck out of that transfer portal and want to play some ball and show that they can play at the next level, and help a team, help a college ball team. And so that's what we want to do for you. That's what I want to do for you. I'm passionate about it. I love it. I love the game that much that I want to help some young men. I'm getting ready to kick off my flag football season here on April 24th with Rise, North Dallas. We're going to do Rise McKinney, hopefully in the fall. And join us in the fall season, but we're getting ready to kick off Rise North Dallas for the spring season on April 24th. So I'm excited about that. But like I said, I appreciate you whether you watch this live or you watch the recording. Share it with other people man. It's about making your football dreams a reality. So I look forward to you guys joining the Dallas Stampede who are looking to try to play college football, and you want that help. And you're looking for that help. And so Coach Smith is willing and want to help you. All right. Appreciate it. And y'all have a good night.